Okay, everyone. So now I'm following up with the note help sheet on electron configuration. And the sheet that you'll need out, let me show you here in a minute. I'm going to do my share screen real fast and share it with you. Okay, let me kind of straighten that up a little bit. All right, so this is the note help sheet that you should have printed out that is going to, and it says note sheet at the top, that we're going to be going over here momentarily. Okay, now before we start going over that, I don't have my periodic table because I'm actually at my house while doing this video. So I wrote this down. This right here that I have right here, this is what you should have at the bottom of your periodic table. Like when I had you guys fill out the periodic table, I had you guys put this information at the very bottom. So if you followed my instructions and you colored the table and you filled in all the information, you should have all of this information below at the table. Now, we just went over this in the notes. And you have 4 quantum values that you're going to have when you're done with this, okay? Now, you'll start out with letters, and there's 4 letters, N, L, M, and S. And each letter will be assigned a value when you're done. And each of these 4 values are the 4 quantum numbers, and they will represent the identity or the what we called earlier the address of the particular element. Okay, so N is the row number, so that's going to be the last row number that you wrote in your electron configuration. L is the sublevel. What is the last letter that you wrote for your sublevel in the electron configuration? And then there's a numeric value assigned to each one of those letters, going from 0 to 3. M is the orientation. So where is that particular electron? Okay, so you just located it. How far it is from the nucleus, that's N. Okay, so how far it is from the nucleus, what energy level is it in? L is, okay, what shape orbital is it in? And M is, okay, what direction is that orbital rotating within the atmosphere? Because remember, all of this is three-dimensional. So where is it located? What cloud region is it located within? Okay, and then the last one is S. What direction is my electron spinning? Is it going to the positive half turn, going up, or is it going down to the negative half turn? So which direction is it spinning? So those are your 4 quantum values. So this is what right here is what you should have written at the bottom of your table. Okay, now I'm going to kind of put this to the side right here so we can kind of see it. Maybe I'll just put it over here, and if I need to, I'll get back to it, okay? And these are gonna be my configurations, okay? So you're gonna have a little bit of writing here, but look, I understand there's a bit of writing, so I am gonna do something really nice. Remember how you guys earlier did the orbital filling diagram? You had to put all of those arrows in. Okay, that's the last time you're going to have to do that. So what we're going to do is the very last thing you wrote the configuration for. That's the only thing you're going to have to put arrows in for. And I'll explain how to do all of that right now. So the first one we're doing is sodium. Okay, so you're going to do 2 things here. You're going to have the electron configuration, the orbital diagram, and the 4 quantum values. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write the electron configuration for sodium. It's 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s1. Okay, now if I'm looking to do the orbital filling diagram, I would have all these boxes, right? But I'm not going to have all these boxes. I'm only going to have boxes for the very last one, which is 3s1. So 3s1 has 1 box, and you can either do it as a line or a box. So I'll do the first one as a box. So that's the P, that's my S, right? Okay, and that's going to be 3s1. Okay, now within that box, I'm going to draw 1 arrow going in the up direction. How do I know that? Because remember, you always draw your up arrow first. Okay, now down here, this is where I'm going to be looking at my 4 quantum numbers. Okay, So I'm going to write the 4 letters in there, and then each letter is going to be assigned a number. Okay, so where did I stop here? What row number? It's the very first thing that I did. What row number did I stop at? I stopped at row 3. Okay, what letter did I stop at? I stopped in the S sublevel. So let me go back and look here. Okay, if I stop in the S sublevel, okay, what is the value of L? It's 0. Okay, so L sublevel, right? It's going to be 0. So now for L, it's going to be 0. Now, M's a little tricky. So you know I have this box up here, okay? If you go back and look under what you wrote on your periodic table, when I stop in the S sublevel, I only have one orbital, and the room number that's assigned underneath that orbital is 0. So there's actually a 0 underneath the box. So M is going to also equal 0. And the last thing I'm going to write is S. What direction is my arrow pointing? Is it pointing up? It's always the last arrow that you drew. Or is it pointing down? Well, if I look at it, it is pointing in the upward direction. So it's going to be a positive 1/2. You must write the positive or you will not get full credit for that, because I don't know if you actually knew what you were writing or not. So it's very important that you write that. So now we're done with sodium. Okay, so let's try Fe. Fe has a configuration of 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s2, 3d6. Now, I don't want to have to keep drawing boxes, so I'm going to represent my boxes as just dashed lines, okay? So I know that if I'm looking at D sublevel, it has 5 orbitals, right, or 5 subshells. So I'm going to draw 5 lines like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if I forget how many are there, guess what? You already have that written on your periodic table, because if you go over to where M is, M actually tells you how many lines to draw for each of the 4 orbitals. S is 0, or excuse me, 1, P has 3, D has 5, and F has 7. And then remember, underneath those blanks, you have numbers assigned to them. So I'm going to look here. I'm in D sublevel. So I'm going to say -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. I'm going to go ahead and write those numbers in already, okay, because I know that I'm going to need them. So remember, you only have to draw the orbital diagram for the very last one you wrote for the electron configuration. So now look at that little exponent. How many is that? 6, right? So I'm going to count. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to have a down arrow for 6, just like that. So I'm going to stop at 6. Remember, you have to fill all of the open rooms or open subshells with up arrows first before you can start doubling up. You can't double up until all of them have been filled, okay? So now let's do our quantum values. So N is the row that I stopped on. So what is the number in front of the letter? It's a 3. So I stopped on row 3. L is the letter. What letter did I stop in? D, right? So I go back to my table and I look, okay, what is the value assigned to D for L? It is 2, okay? So I go back and I say L equals 2. Now remember, M is what is the last subshell I stopped in. So if I'm looking up here and I have my lines already drawn, the last one is this one right here because I drew a down arrow. Remember, you had to draw all of your up arrows and then go back and draw your down arrows. So this down arrow is the last arrow that I drew. And what is the number assigned to that blank? It's a -2. So my M is going to equal a -2. And then the last thing is, what direction is the last arrow that I drew? What direction is it pointing? It's pointing down, so it's going to be a -1/2. Okay, so this is starting to make sense. Okay, so now we're going to go down to bromine. Bromine has a configuration all the way to 4p5. So I'm going to say 1s2, 2s2, oops, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s2, 3d10, and 4p5. Okay, so I left it in the p sublevel, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Remember, if you forget, you can go back and look at your table. P sublevel has 3, so it's -1 to +1. Okay, so we're going to go -1, 0, 1. And we're going to do 5. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like that. Okay, now the bottom row, we're going to do our 4 quantum values. So n is the row I stopped in. So what row did I stop on? That's 4. So n equals 4. What letter did I stop in? I stopped in the p sublevel. Okay, so if I stop in the p sublevel, that means I'm going to go back to my table and I'm going, oh, sorry, did not mean to pause my screen. I don't know how that happened. Whoops. Go back and fix that. Uh-oh. Hang on, guys. I'm so sorry. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so I stopped in the P sublevel. So remember, P is going to equal 1. Okay, so L is 1. And then M is the last place I drew an arrow. So remember, I counted them out. I said 1, 2, 3 going up, and then 4, 5. Okay? So the last arrow I drew was going down right here. Okay? And then S is going to be the spin of the electron. So the last arrow I drew was going down, so it's going to be a -1/2. Okay? All right, so we got 2 more to do. So the next one is barium. Okay? So barium is going to be all the way to 6s2. So 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s2, 3d10, 4p6, 5s2, 4d10, 5p6, 6s2. So I'm going to stop at 6s2. So I'm going to draw my arrow, put a 0 here, and I have 2. So I'm going to have 1 up and 1 down, just like that. Okay? So now I'm going to say N is the row I stopped on, so it's 6. L is the letter that I stopped in, which is F. F is assigned 3. M is the blank that I stopped in. It just so happens in the S you only have 1 blank, so it's going to be 0. And then what direction is that last arrow pointing? That last arrow pointing is going down, so it's a -1/2. Okay? All right, so we're done with that. So now we're on the last one, which is cerium. Okay, so for cerium, you're going to have 1s2. It's going to be at 4f3, or no, excuse me, 4f2. Okay, so 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p6, 4s2, 3d10, 4p6, 5s2, 4d10, 4p6, 6s2, 4f2 is where we're stopping. Now, if you go back and look at your table for the F sublevel, you're actually going to have 7 blanks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blanks. And underneath those blanks, you're going to write your numbers that are already assigned, just like that. Okay? And then you're going to draw in your arrows. 1, 2, and then I'm going to stop. You still have to represent all the blanks, even though you may not fill them. Okay? So now N is the row number you stopped on. So N is going to be 4. L is the letter that I stopped in. I stopped in the F. So if I go right here, you'll see that F is 3. Okay? So L will equal 3 for that. M is what is the last arrow I put in the blank? And that's going to be right here at -2. So M is going to be -2. And then S is going to be what direction is the arrow pointing? It's pointing up, so it's going to be a positive 1/2. Okay? So I hope you enjoyed the lesson, and we are going to, you're going to have an assignment on writing arrow diagrams and quantum values. You should do that just like I showed you on the help sheet, the note sheet, okay? So if you have any questions, remember, don't hesitate to ask, okay?